Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first webcast supporting the eHealth to performance management transition. We're here to answer transition and adoption questions to help you move from eHealth to performance management and get the most out of performance management going forward. So I have with me today Brian Jackson and Mike Poehler, who will help me answer your questions. My name is Chaz. I'm one of the product managers for performance management, and we're ready to take questions. To unmute your line for a question, press #6 or enter the question in the WebEx chat.
Hey, Chaz, looks like we have a Q&A question that came in. I'm not sure if you see that.
I do. It says, please briefly explain the process to engage CA. There are a number of ways to engage CA. The kind of most typical way would be to go through CA support and create a support ticket. If you're looking for broader help, typically reaching out to customer success if you have a customer success representative assigned to you, or to your sales representative is a good way to start the conversation. We also watch the communities, so that's another great way to engage and to ask questions where you may not need to wait for a response from the CA person, but be able to find the information live would be to go to the performance management communities. I'll add the link to the chat in just a moment.
We have another question, Chaz.
Okay. Is there any cheat sheet? Go ahead, Octavia.
Yeah, is there any cheat sheet or other documentation that might exist to give an example of how to recreate a trend, health, etc. report and convert weekly, monthly reports into CAPC dashboard and reports?
There's no cheat sheet because in a lot of cases it's not a one-to-one transition. Many reports, when they're produced out of performance management dashboards and context pages, are going to be slightly different from the eHealth reports. Where we've seen customers have the most success is to look at the reports and say, what parts here are really important? What are we really using? And then take the opportunity to rationalize the reports they're sending out versus the data that they're looking at live in performance management. But reports and dashboards are one of the areas that we realize are very different between performance management and eHealth. So we're likely to produce more content in this area in the future.
I just thought that it was not coming from the state, current state
Chaz, this is Brian. I might add to that, to Jim's question too, that a lot of the devices will come out of the box with their own set of reports, and many of those include trend and health type of reports. And one of the changes between eHealth and performance management is the fact that there's the concept of time context for these items. So if you look at a dashboard that has the trend that you want, say you're looking at interface utilization, you can change the time range in the dashboard to look at something like weekly or monthly immediately there without having to rerun a report, which is really nice. Or you could actually create a dashboard that had the current utilization of the interface, 1 week past, 1 month past, 3 months past, things like that. So, Jim, you can certainly reach out to me and I can help you with that if you would like.
The next question now, please briefly explain the process to engage CA support for migration assistance.
We've actually already talked about that question, starting with CA support or reaching out to customer success or the sales representative. The next question is, have CA created a solid and standard response to customers asking how CAPM will fulfill the live health functionality? Brian, is that one that you can address?
Yeah, certainly. So the way that, so inside of performance management, there is the concept of creating thresholds like you would with live health. And when those thresholds are created and violated, there is the concept of a notification. So if you want that threshold violation to cause an event to happen to another system, then we have that capability. Now, there are event views within performance management for all of the components. And when I say component, I mean it could be a CPU or the memory or a hard disk on a server or an interface of a networking device. And each of those have their own events associated with that component, and each of those can send up either a trap, or if you're integrated with our CA Spectrum fault tool, it can create an alarm in Spectrum. And the Spectrum alarm view is now also available in performance management. So it's a very tight integration where you can set up performance thresholds in PM, you can set up fault in Spectrum, and look at both of those in either tool, whether you're looking at Spectrum in the one-click interface, or if you use the new alarm view in performance management, you can see those as well. And that's our strategy, Spectrum for fault, performance management for performance-related alarms, and then the integration between the two for event correlation and analysis and things.
Building on that, we did also recognize there was a gap in the performance management notifications compared to live health. And so in the 3.6 release of performance management, which was GA last month, we added the ability to kick off a script as one of the types of notifications that could be produced from a threshold event. The next question is there any guidance for choosing between performance management and UIM to replace eHealth? And I think this is a fairly straightforward question. For the majority of customers on eHealth monitoring network infrastructure, CA performance management is a more natural fit to replace eHealth. More of the feature functionality is reproduced in in performance management than in UIM. The cases where we do see UIM as a replacement for eHealth is if the devices under management are primarily servers and you're looking for server-specific metrics and monitoring information.
We have another question. Is it expected of a customer to make use of CA Spectrum to replace the fishbone view?
Yeah, so this is Brian again. I'll answer this because I think it's a follow-on to our live health question there. So there are views within performance management called scorecard views, which will give you a green check mark or a yellow indicator or a red indicator based on various thresholds. And of course, one of the metrics that we do gather with performance management is availability. So if the fishbone view was being used for availability reporting, for example, you would be able to use the scorecard views to get very similar functionality. Now, it does not look the same because we did not recreate the fishbone view, but these scorecard views can be grouped you can choose to group them at the group layer, a device layer, or a component layer. So, for example, if I had geographic groups for each of the cities that I have a branch office in, I could see a scorecard that tells me whether all of the devices within those groups are available or not and color code appropriately. So we think that we have a way to give you the same type of functionality, but it will not look exactly the same.
Brian, do you think now would be a good time to show the scorecard view?
Yeah, let me bring it up really quickly here, and then I'll share my screen.
Sure. The next question is, when will we see IPSLA test provisioning in CAPM via the graphical interface? This is an area that we've been investigating. We currently provide IPSLA provisioning through performance management via REST, but we don't have a GUI to put on top of that yet. We're currently planning our next release, but we don't have any solid date commitments around the GUI for IPSLA provisioning at this time.
And Chaz, I think you might need to give, I can't grab the ball, so you might need to give it to me.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, and let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we can see the scorecard.
Okay, great. So what we're looking at here is there are several different types of scorecard views, and the one that I'm talking about at the top here, you can see that we're looking at availability here. So availability is the metric family, and availability is also the name of the particular metric in that metric family that we are looking at. And you can see right now that I'm calculating by group level this particular metric in the scorecard. You can also see underneath here where I've set my threshold. So I can see that this will turn a yellow color if it goes to 98. It will turn orange if it goes to 95, and anything 90 or below will turn red. Now, this is a demonstration system, and all the things that I have right now are up and available, which is nice. I don't know if we can mute that line. I'm hearing some mute. Thank you. But what we're showing here is, again, because we're doing this at the group level, I'm seeing these groups. So I see all of these geographic groups, and I'm looking at the availability and then color coding them appropriately based on what that number is. In this particular scorecard, I'm doing a couple other things as well. You can see the overall average in this column right here. This is what it currently is. I'm also looking back in the past a few hours. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 different historical time periods that I'm looking at. So I can look back and say, oh, okay, well, I see what this was like, the last 6 hours. And it's doing this by an hourly jump because that's what my time frame is set for here. If I changed this to 7 days or 8 hours, then these time periods would increment by 8 hours, and I would be looking at the last 8, 16, 24, 32, etc. hours back. What's also interesting about this, because I'm looking at this past performance data, now I can also do projections. So you're seeing projections here for 1 hour into the future, 2 hours into the future, 3 hours into the future, again, because my time frame is set to an hour here. So if I change this to 24 hours, I would be looking forward 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. And we can do that for any metric that's within the system. So again, we're looking at availability here because the question was about live trends and the ability to have a replacement for the fishbone view. And this is what we would advocate. If you look a little bit lower here, I'm now looking at something by the component. So if I wanted to look at individual interfaces, for example, I can still do these scorecard kinds of views. Or if I wanted this to be at the device level, I could do that as well. So scorecard views are a nice way to look at this. It also gives me historical information, and it can allow me to do projections if that's what I want to look at as well.
Thank you, Brian. The next question is it necessary to create SNMP profiles for discovery, or can CAPM initiate discovery through spectrum inventory similar to the Spectrum to eHealth integrated discovery? So for SNMP profiles, they do need to be recreated in performance management from Spectrum today. This is a feature we're looking at with high priority to see how we can improve the integrated discovery between Spectrum and performance management. Today, you can use Spectrum to drive that discovery, but the SNMP profiles need to be pre-populated in performance management.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Chaz, I think there might be a little confusion there. So there are 2 separate things that have to happen. One is the SNMP profiles need to be created, but the discovery profile, which initiates us going out and contacting the device, once you've integrated Spectrum and PM, that occurs automatically. And by default, we run that every 24 hours. So if Spectrum gets a new device in, PM will check every 24 hours and then try and contact the devices that Spectrum sent over. You can change that. Once the integration is done, you can say, I want this to run every 12 hours or maybe every 2 hours or whatever makes sense for your environment as well.
And I know there is that background noise. We're trying to mute it. We've tried to use the mute all lines option, and it hasn't shut out that line. So we do apologize for the background noise on this. If you give us just a moment, we're going to try to figure out the audio issues here.
Press 1 from your dial pad to enjoy system services.
Sorry, we are trying to remove the background noise. We will continue despite it, so I do sincerely apologize. The next question was, what algorithm is used for the projections for scorecard views? Brian, do you know which algorithm is used? If not, I'll see if I can get one of the engineers to answer that question to me real quickly here.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute there. So yeah, so we use least squared progression and projection using the Excel method. And one of the nice things here, I'll bring back up my my screen here. One of the nice things that you can do is, if people aren't familiar with PM, on all of the columns here, you'll see there's a little gear icon that I can click on that gives me the ability to do things like sort the results or save the order of these columns. I can move these columns around if I want. But one of the neat things here is under this
services. Please press 1 from your dial pad to enjoy system services.
One of the things that we can do in a lot of these, I guess I don't have it turned on, and maybe for this particular user, I'll do it down here, is you'll notice we have slope, intercept, degrees, and linear fit, days to threshold. These are all things that we provide. They're just not in the default view. So so what I can do is, if I'm using this for capacity planning purposes, I can come in here and say, what's my linear fit, or how close is this to being 1, which is 100% accurate. So as I go through here, I can determine whether this makes sense for me to use for capacity planning, or I can figure out how accurate these are. And typically, the more historical data that we have, the more accurate we'll be projecting out into the future as well. So I'm just going to click all these on here just so that you get a feel for it. So days to threshold, the linear fit, degree, intercept, and the slope. All of this information is here to provide, again, information to you to make an informed decision when you're looking at those projections to validate them. Sorry, it's hard to concentrate a little bit with that music going.
You're doing phenomenally. We're ready to take a couple more questions. we have another question that came in through the chat. It says, is it possible to provide a customized reporting document where we explain each context-specific report? So we don't, with performance management, we don't produce static reports. Instead, what we do is we provide a set of views that can be used to build the reports that you need. We do have fairly extensive documentation about how to use each of those view types. And I'll put the link to that documentation in the chat momentarily. Next question is there any difference to discover SNMP v3 devices? Do we need to create profiles like Spectrum? So SNMP v3 discovery and performance management is the same as SNMP v1 and 2, where regardless of what type of SNMP profile or SNMP version you're using, you create an SNMP profile. And I'll send the link to the documentation to that as well. Are there any other questions coming in? Head, Andre? we don't currently have any documentation around bringing UIM views into CA performance management. And do you know if UIM views are can be externalized in a way that we could put them into the web views in performance management? Are there any other questions that we can try to answer while you to troubleshoot the background noise?
From your dial pad to enjoy system services. System services, the world of premium services. Please press 1 from your dial pad to enjoy system services.
We're currently disconnecting the users that we think may be causing the background noise. Andre, if you have any more questions, please reach out to us. Session where we continue to take a look at various topics in the performance management transition. We hear a lot of interest in the dashboard and reporting aspects of performance management and how to recreate some of the eHealth content. And so that would be a topic that we'd like to dive into further. At this time, it appears that there are no further questions. Given the background noise, we're going to end this session. We will be scheduling a follow-up session, so if there are more questions, please keep an eye on the communities and join us then.